Om Gyanatimirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidhyamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we're continuing our seminar on prayer, and let's see what we can remember from yesterday. What stuck with you from yesterday?
I remember mostly about the chastisement of Guru Maharaj and not glorifying Srila Prabhupada. I realized that it is so important for us.
Yes, very nice. The importance of writing Vyasa Puja offerings to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Something else?
We talked about the feeling of inaptitude, and we talked about how even very advanced Vaishnavas feel this inaptitude, but we also talked about how this is not an obstacle for them to write heartfelt words to the Lord.
Yes, very nice. Rajamohini nicely summarized the essence of the class yesterday. I was showing you different quotes, how elevated devotees feel, how much they feel unqualified when they want to glorify the Lord. Anyone else has something that really stuck with you from yesterday?
Krishna doesn't need our prayers, but we need to pray for our purification.
Yes, he doesn't need anything. He's Atmarama. He doesn't need the food that we offer. But he is a devotion addict. He's very much hungry for our devotion. And just as worshipping the deity and so many other services are an opportunity for us, so is prayer. So you may remember that at the end of the class we got into another topic, which was whether the language of prayer matters or not. And I spoke a little about the Sanskrit language, how special it is, because it's also the language of the spiritual realm, and it's capable to express concepts that don't exist in other cultures or traditions. So I'd like to continue this topic, why did Srila Prabhupada emphasize that we should pray in the original language, Sanskrit, Bengali. So I already mentioned yesterday that when Srila Prabhupada wrote his books, this was the format he used. First he wanted us to have the original Devanagari script. This is the most common writing of Sanskrit texts. I'm sure you've seen it in the books. It looks very beautiful. And then he gave us the Roman transliteration. You can see these are letters that we're used to, but there are also diacritic marks on it. So diacritic marks are little signs that are added to, like Komaram. You can see it's a long A, or there is a dot on the top of the M, or there is Dhiras with a long E. So this is the international transliteration of the Sanskrit alphabet. So all the different languages that use Roman letters agree on using the same diacritics. So whether it's a text in German or Hungarian or Turkish or whatever, it would look the same, and everyone who wants to understand Sanskrit words or read them out can easily read them. It allows the lossless transliteration of the Roman text. Sanskrit is a phonetic language. It is written as it is spoken, not like English. So when you learn Sanskrit, if you once learn what script goes with which sound, it's always the same. So we are advised to learn the script from the beginning, how diacritics are to be read. Like here you have tiras. So in Hungarian, when we write S, we pronounce it as sh. So we had to learn that when we see S, if it's a Sanskrit word, then we are supposed to say S. And for example, J, when it comes in Hungarian text, then we say Y. But with this script, we learned that it's J, John Mamri, Jujarab, So you're all familiar with using it. Like in the beginning of Bhagavatam classes when we have a verse on the board, and we've learned how to read this Roman transliteration of Sanskrit text. And Sanskrit writes as it speaks, as I said, so every sound that is written is supposed to be pronounced. So after Srila Prabhupada gave us the Roman transliteration, he gave us the synonyms, the word-for-word translation. While memorizing verses, it's advised to look at the word-for-word translation and know exactly what we're saying. I've already mentioned this with the morning prayers. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the full verse in Roman and the word-for-word is often a little bit different. Has anyone ever noticed this?
Yes.
So where are these differences?
I think there are more meanings to one word. Maybe this is why in the context we also some meaning comes out which is not in the word for word translation.
No, this is just a spelling, like you see dehino, smin. And then in the word for word you have dehinaha and asmin. Or in the verse you have praptir, but in the word for word you have prapti. Chandramana?
I think when the two words come together, some sounds change.
There's a grammatical phenomenon called sandhi, which describe phonological changes when two words meet. So they have like an interaction. So there's some transformation. That's the reason why the word for word is not exactly what is the verse. So like there is a rule that when the word ends with us, dehinas or dehinaha, and then there is a word after which starts with an A, then it becomes O, dehino, and the A disappears and there is just an apostrophe. So there are many Sandhi rules. This is not a Sanskrit class, you won't have to learn them. But Prabhupada worked so hard to give us this format of verses. So it's good to know what's going on here. And then we have the translation. So when we learn these verses, if the sound vibration we memorize is combined with the understanding of the content of the words, then the effect is much greater. Because we don't want to just be parrots repeating some kind of sound, but we want to express something to the Lord. So I'm repeating that it's important to know what we're saying when we're praying. There is a well-known saying a father would say to his son. This is a grammar maxim. Yatyapi bahunadi shetatapi pathaputra vyakaranam svajana shvajana mahut sakalam shakalam sakrit chakrit. Even if you don't master so much, at least know Sanskrit grammar, so there is no mixing of svajana, which means relatives, and shvajana, which means a group of dogs. Sakala, meaning everything, and shakala, meaning part. And sakrit meaning at once, and shakrit meaning feces. So this verse demonstrates that we should know how to pronounce the verses properly so that we say what we intend to say. So you can see if just one sound is different, the meaning is different. There's a difference if you say svajana or shvajana, or you say sakala or shakala. So devotees often have a tendency to mispronounce Sanskrit words. When it becomes a habit, then when new devotees come, then they learn the wrong pronunciation and then everything just becomes degraded, distorted. To represent the disciplic succession, it's very important that we properly pass on this oral tradition we have. Incorrect pronunciation stems partly from the early days of our movement. There were no songbooks. And devotees learned only by hearing others, who heard from others, who heard from others. You know, you may know this game we played as children, you whisper something into the ear of the next person and then you go to the next person. and in the end it's like something completely different. Also, many variations of pronunciation occur under the influence of local languages. So you may have noticed when you meet devotees internationally, then because they come from a different language background, they can't pronounce certain sounds maybe. But any child can learn their mother tongue because it's possible to learn different sounds. Whatever language it is, it's possible to learn. It just may take a little practice if it's a sound that we're not so used to pronouncing. Also, Western and Northern Indians tend to drop the last A at the end of the word. So, because it's used so much, and also Srila Prabhupada spoke like that, then we tend to do so as well. I do it too. She said it so nicely, so I usually say Srila Prabhupada, but it's Srila Prabhupada actually. Or Vishnupad is Vishnupada. It's not Vrindavan, but Vrindavana. Vana means forest. Forest of Vrindavan. Or we say Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but it's actually Thakura. Or we say Mahabharata. But it's Mahabharata. Ramayana, Kirtana, Bhajana. So you can see we usually drop the A. However, sometimes we just don't pay attention. But Srila Prabhupada wanted us to. As I said, some words we mispronounce, we change the meaning or have the opposite meaning of the original words. But this is not something new, as this verse shows. Even in the Indian tradition, fathers had to remind their sons, pronounce it well because you're going to say something different than what you mean. Srila Prabhupada also sometimes pointed out to devotees that by mispronouncing words, they are saying something else than what they intend to. This is an example from a lecture. Srila Prabhupada says, you're chanting the mantras, but because it is not your language, sometimes it appears broken. Just like Guru. Sometimes you say Guru. Guru means cow, and Guru means spiritual master. So the difference in meaning is vast. The spiritual master is not a cow or a bull. It's a very sweet class. Actually, if you read, it continues on. I just took out this part. Prabhupada says, it's okay, I know what you're trying to say. There was another time, this is told by Burjan Prabhu in his little book on Srila Prabhupada called My Glorious Master. So Prabhupada said, so he writes, one day Prabhupada was sitting on the Vyasasana. He became very upset and speaking loudly described how he had gone through all the trouble to include the Sanskrit shlokas and transliterations in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but the devotees were neither showing any interest nor learning the correct Sanskrit pronunciation. In short, they were ignoring the Sanskrit he had placed within his books. So you can see, it is important. Prabhupada is making a point, don't ignore it. I didn't just put it there so that you skip it and you just go from translation to translation. He wanted us to pay attention to the Sanskrit verses. So then Prabhupada became adamant and said that from now on, everyone in ISKCON must learn to pronounce correctly and understand the Sanskrit shlokas. For the next 3 weeks, every morning in Srimad Bhagavatam class, he called upon each devotee requesting us to chant the shlokas aloud. The thing that made it unique was that Prabhupada would take 10 or 15 minutes with one person and personally teach him how to pronounce every single Sanskrit syllable in the shloka. So we know Prabhupada was super conscious of how he spent his time, because he started his mission in the West at a very late age. So obviously he was focusing on giving us the essence of everything. But we can understand how essential this is from how Prabhupada spent time on this. So before going on with the prayer topic, I'm just going to mention a few words that we very regularly mispronounce. Yeah. I also grew up in ISKCON, and I do that as well. I try to pay attention, but sometimes if I say things correctly, it's weird to devotees, which is not to stop us from saying it right. But for example, most devotees say prasadam when you're going to go and honor prasadam. But it's supposed to be prasada. Because when you say prasadam, it's already the objective case. Meaning, when you inflect words, You can say something in a nominative case, accusative case, instrumental case, dative case. So prasadam is the accusative case, it's not the nominative. It's hard to say in English because English doesn't inflect. Does Turkish inflect the end of the words? English uses prepositions, like we say, from Krishna, for Krishna, with Krishna, but Sanskrit adds endings to the end of the words to change the meaning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we often say prasadam, but it should be prasada. Or man having this hair tuft, generally everyone calls it sika, but it's actually shikha. We say Brahmin often, but it's Brahmana. Or we say, I don't know here how much, but in Hungary they always say Ekadasi. Because in Hungarian the sound E is very common, but in Sanskrit it doesn't exist. So it should be Ekadashi. Or we say Radhastami, Janmastami. In Hungary they often say Janmastami. I'm not so familiar with the mispronunciations here, but it should be Radhashtami and Janmashtami. So you just pronounce it as it's spelled, as when you read the Bhagavatam verse, all these words are also to be pronounced like that. Or we say Raj Bhog for the noontime offering, but it's actually Raja Bhoga. So it's nice to learn these, especially because we're not just some hippies jumping around here and there anymore, but we have such a big movement and we're representing a tradition. So there are scholars and academics who are also looking at what we're doing. It's good if we nicely represent the tradition. Improper pronunciation discredits ISKCON. And also when we preach, the audience may misunderstand what we're trying to say. So the leaders of the society have recognized this problem, that so many devotees are mispronouncing words. So His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj wrote a wonderful little book called Sanskritotcharanam. It's a comprehensive guide to Sanskrit pronunciation. It's a very nice book for anyone, not for someone who wants to learn Sanskrit. There's for any devotee in ISKCON to understand how to pronounce things and what's the problem with mispronunciation. There is a section about Sanskrit meters. I only showed you 2 or 3 quotes about Srila Prabhupada emphasizing the importance of proper pronunciation. In this book you can find pages and pages of quotes from Prabhupada where he's adamant that you have to pronounce Sanskrit nicely. So this book gets into a lot of detail. And there's also another thing I highly recommend. This is a course, a free course for ISKCON devotees created by Nityananda Prabhu. He's a BBT Sanskrit editor. He was trained by Gopiparanadhana Prabhu in the Govardhan Sanskrit School. And he put together a wonderful course specifically for ISKCON devotees, focusing on the standard prayers we use that are Sanskrit. The name of the website is www.sanskritsense.com, as you can see. You can see the course curriculum is 2 hours 45 minutes. That's not too long. But you can find, one thing is the wonderfully pronounced full morning program. Pranams to our different acharyas, beautifully pronounced Premadvani. So this is the website. Yes, here is Sanskrit pronunciation for ISKCON. It's a free course. Learn to correct the way of pronouncing and singing the standard prayers and chants of ISKCON. You can enroll for free. You just have to give your details. Because one of the benefits is if you do morning program at home, one thing he does is first there is some introduction and then there are demo videos. You can see there are 19 videos. PDF of lyrics, which you can download. Then he's chanting Mangalacharana prayers. Some other, there's the Gurvashaka, there's the Premadvani, the Simha prayers, Tulsi mantras, the Panchatattva mantra, Maha mantra, we chant it constantly to chant it properly. There are Bhagavatam prayers, the Prasada Shloka, and some others, Shikshashtaka, Damodarashtaka, Shadgoswami Ashtaka, Radhika Stava, Dashavatar Stotra, Jagannath Ashtaka, whole Upadeshamrita are beautifully pronounced. After the demo videos, there are tutorials where he's explaining in great. So first he just sings it. It's a very nice. He's also a musician, so he's singing nicely. So you can just keep listening to it so that you get the pronunciation right. But then he's also doing tutorials. Yes, explanation, very detailed. It says a detailed analysis of Gurvashtaka.
It's Nritya Gita, dancing and singing, and not the eternal singing. Anyway, so here, 1, 2, 3. Mahaprabho Kirtana Nritya Gita. Okay, the same structure. 1, 2, Karatalas are playing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Ta-tan, ta-tan, tan. Ta-ta-tan, ta-tan, tan.
He's also explaining the meter, because sometimes we are pronouncing it right, but we are out of meter. We don't know what's a long syllable and what's a short. We pronounce something that's supposed to be long, short, but the meter is also expresses a mood, and it's the proper way to pronounce a word. Here you can see he shows that there are 11 syllables in this line, what the meter is, and then he's showing how exactly to pronounce the words.
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam.
So I think you get the point. Thank you. So it's a very useful course. You can download the way he chants, repeat it, and once you learn it, you can do it well for a lifetime. So it just takes a little effort to learn it properly, and also then when new devotees come, they hear it properly, and you can also share with them where they can learn it properly from. It would be wonderful, but unfortunately so far we don't have something like this for our Bengali prayers. I myself am not sure often, because sometimes it's written like this, koro, karo, this way, that way. So I hope one day we will also have a course like this for ISKCON devotees for all our Bengali prayers. But you can see that Prabhupada wanted us to use our Sanskrit prayers because they are the original, wonderful, transcendental sound vibration. Okay, so how about Bengali? I don't know so much Bengali, but I'll show you things that Srila Prabhupada said about praying in Bengali, so that you can also see that that is also important. So Bengali is a later language, as we know. Later, like originally in India, people spoke Sanskrit. And then there are different languages that evolved from it. So we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Bengal, and he spoke Bengali. Bengal is also called Gauda, and we are known as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sometimes it's said Bengali Vaishnavas. So Sanskrit grammar is very complex, but Bengali is quite simple. But the Bengali Gaudiya poems are just as important as the Sanskrit mantras of the Vedic texts because of their content and their mood. We know many of Lord Chaitanya's followers wrote in Bengali, so that the people of Bengal would easily understand and be able to use. So let's look at a purport of Srila Prabhupada. He says, there are songs of Thakur Narottam Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, who came after, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakur Narottam Das to be as good as Vedic mantras. And this is so because of the subject matter. The language is immaterial, but the subject matter is important. So, Narottam Das Thakur wrote songs in Bengali, but from these words of Prabhupada, we may think, well, language is immaterial, only the subject matter is important, so why not just chant in Turkish? Let's look at another quote. This is from a lecture. Prabhupada says, the Narottam Das, he has sung so many Vedic songs. Narottam Das's songs, although it is written in Bengali, it is considered as Shruti, Vedic. Srinivasa Acharya has utilized Narottama Dasa Thakur, that your songs are Vedic evidences. Whatever Narottam Das Thakur has said in simple Bengali song, they're all Vedic injunction. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana are very popular and famous amongst the Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnava, and others also. So as I mentioned, Shri Guru Vandana is from Narottam Das Thakur's Prema Bhakti Chandrika. So we repeat the exact words of Narottam Das Thakur, which is like Shruti. We also know that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali. It does have lots of Sanskrit quotes as well, but the major part of it is Bengali. And the Gaudiya Acharyas say that every single verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita is a perfect work of art. So this is one purport from Prabhupada to Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila. He says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita in his old age, in an invalid condition, but it is such a sublime literature that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj used to say, the time will come when the people of the world will learn Bengali to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are trying to present Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in English and do not know how successful it will be. But if one reads the original Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali, he will relish increasing ecstasy in devotional service. So he doesn't say if you read it in English, or if you read it in Turkish, or if you read it in Hungarian. He says if you read it in Bengali, you will relish increasing ecstasy in devotional service. So from the above we can see that both Sanskrit and Bengali are very important in the Gaudiya tradition. But we also read that language is not as important as the content. And the Srimad Bhagavatam supports this by saying that the literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. This is from Bhagavatam, 1st canto, chapter 5. Very famous verse, Tadvagi Sargo Janatara Vipravo. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So Prabhupada also encouraged us to pray in our own language. In a letter he wrote, yes, you can sing prayers in Sanskrit, but prayers in English can be also pronounced because the Lord accepts the motive, not the pronunciation of the language. He wants to see spiritual motive. Even if some effectiveness is lost in translation, if the motive is there, it will make no difference. So this is not to override everything I said before. You need to have a balanced understanding. So we don't have to become Sanskrit scholars, but we should make an effort to use Sanskrit prayers, Bengali prayers. We also shouldn't become fault finders and critics of everyone who is mispronouncing something and think that they are useless. Krishna has a name, Bhava, Grahi, Janardana, which means he accepts the essence, he accepts the bhava, the mood with which the devotee is offering the prayer. This is something Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Ishvara Puri. He says, Murko vadati Vishnaya, Dhiro vadati Vishnave, Upayostu samam punyam bhava grahi janardanaha. A fool says Vishnaya, a sober learned person says Vishnave. Both of them get the same result as Krishna sees the bhava in the heart of a person. So the point here is, it's supposed to be Vishnave, but if you say Vishnaya, it's the wrong grammatical form. It's okay, Krishna will know. So just remember this, Vishnaya is wrong, Vishnave is right. You all know the tilak mantras, maybe you've noticed something here. Wearing tilaka is also an important part of our tradition. Just a side point, we don't just wear tilaka on our foreheads, but on 12 parts of our body. But sticking to the point here, you can see that every single name, when it's inflected, it ends with aya. Keshavaya, Narayanaya, Madhavaya, Govindaya, Madhusudanaya, Trivikramaya, etc. But you can see there is one word that's not ending with aya, it's Vishnave. The reason for it is because all the other names here of Vishnu end with a. So it's Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, Govinda. But Vishnu ends with a U. So it gets a different case ending. So this is why there was this verse before that Murko, the foolish say Vishnaya, but the learned say Dhira say Vishnave. So we've seen now, is language important or not? But if language is not really so important, since every word glorifying Krishna is transcendental, then why should we say and sing prayers in the original language? In addition to the arguments listed so far, this tradition of praying in Sanskrit and Bengali is strengthened by the knowledge that the authors of the prayers in the scriptures are very exalted personalities. In many cases, eternally liberated, perfect associates of Krishna. And when we recite their exact words, it is not just an expression of our feelings and emotions and thoughts, but we remind Krishna of that devotee who originally wrote that poem. And just because we connect with them, we connect with Narottam Das Thakur, we connect with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we become very dear to Krishna. This is a famous verse, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. So by repeating the prayers of the great Vaishnavas, we also express to the Lord that we consider ourselves the humble servants of these Vaishnavas. And this attitude pleases Krishna very much. Over many, many years, so many devotees have been repeating these same words. It has an added spiritual power. So, to summarize so that we have a few minutes for questions, the language of prayer is important, but not more important than to open our hearts to the Lord, glorify Him to the best of our ability. Thus we pray both by repeating Shastra and the prayers of the previous Acharyas in their original language and in translation, and we also address the Lord in our own verse, in our own mother tongue. So I'm going to stop here now to have a few minutes for questions, and tomorrow's topic will be, are our prayers heard? Anyone has any questions about this little technical class? Our Sanskrit student, Rajamayini.
Just a further question about yesterday's class, if it's okay?
Yes.
When we talked about praying with our own words, I wondered whether there's a format, there's a structure which we can follow when we compose a prayer to our Guru Maharaj or Krishna.
So as I was mentioning, if you study the prayers, then you can see the general structure they use. Dravida Prabhu has a short seminar on this topic, on the 3 elements of Vandana, where he explains based on Shastra that the 3 elements are offering obeisances, glorification, and then the expression of the desire, which may be an expression of gratitude or a request. So these are the main elements in general. But it's good to study different prayers. Like you can look at Kunti Devi's prayers and how is she structuring, or you can look at Gajendra's prayers or Vichasura's prayers and then learn from that. My hope was with this seminar to inspire you to go deeper into this topic. It's definitely not exhaustive. I used the process my Guru Maharaj was mentioning last night to take a topic. It's not a Shastric study where you go verse by verse, but you take a topic and you find things that are at different places about that topic, and then you kind of structure what you've learned there. Generally, when you start doing that, you get 50, 100 pages on a topic, and then I try to summarize into 7, 8 classes. So you can continue that study on your own. Any other question? Yes?
Can I ask also about this question?
Yes.
Shall we also ask to forgive us for everything we are doing, maybe not intentionally?
Yes, that's also, there is the example in Shastra, when devotees make mistakes, they ask for forgiveness. Like, maybe you were not here, but I was mentioning like when Lord Brahma stole the cows, and then, he was begging for forgiveness from Krishna, or when Indra, after the Govardhan Puja, he realized his mistake, then he begged for forgiveness. He even pulled with him, Surabhi, because the cows are so dear to Krishna. So it is an important part of our practice that when we make mistakes, we ask for forgiveness. And of course, to learn from the mistakes, don't just keep repeating them and ask for forgiveness. Something else?
small question that in regards to have a proper grasp in Sanskrit pronunciation, is it enough that we are reading in English form, or is it also important to learn in the real Sanskrit form?
Devanagari.
Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada gave us all the books with Roman transliteration, so if you just read that, the sound vibration you're getting. Devanagari is important if you want to read texts that haven't been Romanized, because otherwise you can't access them. So it's not a compulsory thing to do. It's nice. It's a beautiful script. If you can write it, it's very nice. But most devotees, unfortunately, don't spend enough time reading the books that we've already been given to Prabhupada. The problem is not that I've read everything, I've studied everything, and I want to go further, but now I can't read the book because it's in Devanagari. That's not our general problem. There was a previous year, maybe the last time, when Srila Shyam Swami Maharaj was here, he did a seminar on the 4 books, the 4 most important books of Prabhupada. I mean, what we commented on, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion. So first we can focus on studying these books very well, and of course Prabhupada also encouraged us to read further books of our acharyas. Is that okay? So maybe we should stop here, and then we'll continue tomorrow with our prayers for the topic. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shishi Radha Shyama Sundar Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Shishi Gaurnitai. Sadguru Mahaprabhu Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Guru Parampara ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaura Prema. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki